You are listening to the 5 Squared Podcast, the podcast where we bring you tips for your business and your life. Our goal is to leave you smarter with ideas, wisdom, tools, and entertained. The 5 Squared Podcast is produced weekly for your enrichment. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter at 5 Squared and Facebook. All the links are in the show notes. Now let's get started with your host, business consultant, executive coach, and founder of 5 Squared, Tim Fives.
Welcome back, everybody. 5 Squared Podcast. Tim Fives, your host. Loving life right now. It's fantastic. It's been a great New Year's. Glad to be back at work. Kind of feels like I never left. But, I don't know who said it. When you if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I'm kind of there. I think I kind of found my niche. So it's been good. It's good. A lot of, like I said in the last podcast, has been great. A lot of great feedback. So keep your comments coming. So one of the things I wanted to switch gears. Last time we talked a little bit about integrity, a little bit about leadership. Today we're going to talk a little bit about systems. And we're going to talk about change management for a few minutes. And change management is one of those topics that's generally ignored when you're going through an implementation. And change management has this wide array of people, right? So if I go back to my people, process, and technology talk, I'm really focusing change management on the people, right? And this goes into a system implementation and reorganization or whatever it is. When you deal with people and change, you need a plan to deal with it. Because people, I'm going to let you in on a little secret, don't like change. They don't like it. So if you're in your leadership, start thinking about it. Whether you're putting in the best new system in the world, and people are complaining about the old one, if you don't have a change management plan in place, they're going to puke all over it. It's a natural fact. What are some of the elements that go into a change management plan? Well, first of all, you got to look at your environment. What in the type of work you're doing. If you're putting a system in, training. Okay, I'm not saying to spend $1 gazillion on training. You can do train the trainer. That's fine, but have a plan. Have a training plan. Anybody that touches that system needs to know how it works, right? Because what ends up happening, you're trained, you know how it works, you're comfortable with it, your anxiety goes down, your insecurity goes down about that, and you feel better about your job and the fact that you kind of own it, right? Because people's identity are tied to their roles, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? So if you're going to change a major aspect of the role by putting in a new system, well, guess what? You better make sure they understand how to use it and what the implications and ramifications are. And you better do that before it goes live. Because if they're trying to figure it out on the fly, then guess what happens when they don't know or you haven't trained them properly? Well, then they're going to be getting in each other's, well, you did this and I did that and you did this, or how do I do this and no one's helping me? And now the confusion breeds contempt, and that is dangerous for any organization. And not that it's not recoverable, but why put the time into recovering from that? Training people after the fact when now they're angry, now they're not performing at their best, you're losing productivity. Just awful. So put some training in place. Just put some, get them in there. Get, some workshops done. And training is a great time to get people engaged. People that you would never otherwise get engaged. So run a workshop during the project. Get their feedback. You might be surprised and you might find something out that you hadn't even realized to make the implementation go even better. And you're killing two birds with one stone. Just think about that. The other time to think about change management really comes around when you're doing a reorganization. The HR side of things, and when you're starting to look at, hey, and I've witnessed this within some of my clients, especially the smaller ones, when they're growing and they're adding people, they're reorganizing and they're doing this. Be very mindful, and I just said it earlier, that people are tied to their roles. Their identity is tied to their roles. Their personas are tied to that. So even though you have somebody that's maybe wearing 15 different hats, they're doing AR, purchasing, shipping, whatever, HR, and you bring an HR person in and now they're doing HR, and you take HR away from that person that had 4 hats, now they're wearing 3 hats, and they're going to feel slighted, right? Unless you bring them along the trip saying, hey, you're doing a great job. I really need you in purchasing. You're the best at that. Like, that's your role, right? Or you get to the person and say, like, look, there's 4 roles. You're doing 4 jobs, and we're expanding. So which one of these do you feel most comfortable and most passionate about? Yeah, like, I love to do the purchasing. I love to find the deal. Great, you're purchasing. That's what you do. And now you've got them bought in, and you've got them moving forward with you. And when you bring that HR or that accounts payable person in, they're not, they're going to support it because they've been part of that decision. So change management is crucial. So, on that note, when you start to look at this, and one of the biggest things that I find when you're doing an implementation, back to the systems aspect of this now, just trying to give some examples here, is the first thing that gets cut out of every implementation is like, I don't need training. I'll do it myself, right? Okay, but it's generally 5 to 10% of your project. Why would you cut that out if that's one of the things that's going to ensure success? Okay, a change management program, a communication plan, setting up the infrastructure to do the communications, getting people's buy-in. A lot of the stuff it's important to the success, especially the bigger the project. While I say that, but if you're a small company and you're putting a system in place that impacting your employees, it's maybe even more important than that. And your overall cost is lower because 10% of 100 grand is less than 10% of $1 million. So obvious math. I'm pretty good. That's good example. But you get my drift. Another example of this, I was in the doctor's office not so long ago and walked in there and they're just like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like we came in on Monday and there's a new system and no one's trained me. The receptionist at the doctor's office didn't know what she was doing. Really? So again, those are some tidbits, to think about. Are the people, especially that are interacting with your customers, up to speed with the systems, right? The last thing somebody wants is when you're ordering or you're visiting a doctor or doing whatever is having your customer service rep fumbling with a new system. It's bad. It's bad. Very bad. So that's pardon me. That is just some things to be cognizant of when you're doing a system implementation. The other thing is, it's okay. So there's the system and there's the interface, and that's kind of what I've been alluding to. And what screen do I go to, and how do I navigate the screen? But there's also the overarching process. And I've advocated this, and I'll continue to advocate this, that you don't just take your old process and drop it in and configure a new system for that process, right? There's generally a process reengineering and enhancements to that, or you're going to leverage what the new system's doing, and you're going to adopt that process again, giving those people that use the system the broad picture so they can see where their role in that system is and that process is pivotal, right? Because once somebody understands that, like, oh, all right, I got to do this, and if I do that, then Larry gets his stuff, and this is going to work well, and I can see it, versus the siloed approach. Again, train the trainers, seminars, training, doing the overviews, getting their buy-in during the project, all of that helps with the change management aspect. One of the things that has worked for me, especially, is when we're doing implementation strategy planning, is to get people engaged in that. So if I'm doing a project, a roadmap for a company, an IT, especially like an IT roadmap or an IT strategy, I talk to everybody, because that's your knowledge. I mean, the knowledge is in your people, right? So you go out and you pull that out. And that, for me, when I'm in a project, is the first step in the change management, right? Not that I'm asking for a wish list, but what you start to engender along this is a vision of hope, right? It's like I can see the light, but I'm not sure what I'm looking at, right? Still a little hazy, but I'm working with a client right now that it's fantastic because we're in that stage and they're coming out and they're excited and but the change management now has been bought in and expectations were starting to be set. Well, I think we can do this. I think we're going to prioritize these projects this way. Oh, I understand that, Tim. I understand how the prioritization works. I may not agree with it. Not saying they like it, but they understand it, and that's huge. And then you get into the next phase. All right, well, here's what we think we should select. Okay, great. Maybe we're doing it on price or features or functionality or or the ability to drive new and better services to the customer, or new product to the customer, whatever it might be. Right, and then you go to the next stage. All right, well, now we need to implement it. And now everybody's engaged in this versus a mandate from management coming down saying, we have to do this, and the decision-making has already been done. And again, not always applicable, but more times than not it is, and you can get their buy-in. So, we're excited for the new year. 2016 was great. 2017 is going to be fantastic. I think in the next podcast tool, we'll be introducing some new team members, which is great, and some of our new offerings that we're going to be going forward with. So stay tuned, stay thirsty, my friends. I guess I can't say that because that's a tagline for Dos Equis. But it's great. I need a beer. Peace out.
Thank you so much for listening to the show with your host, Tim Fives. We hope you will pass along our web address, fivesquared.com, to your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at 5squared or follow us on Facebook. This has been a 5 Squared production. Join us next time for another edition of the 5 Squared Podcast.